All right, next up we have Patricia MacMillan. Patricia is in her 14th year of advising at Ontario Tech University, where she works with students in the Faculty of Social Science and Humanities. Patricia says she could have benefited from an advisor in her post-secondary education path, as she started in psychology and then moved to theater before finally settling on marketing. She started in advising as an administrative assistant in the advising office and has worked her way up to senior academic advisor. Patricia is currently in the last few months of her term as the NACADA Region 5 Chair and also serves on the EOP Advisory Board as well as the Membership Retention and Recruitment Committee. She was lucky to be selected as an emerging leader for the 2016 to 2018 EOP class and as a mentor in the 2020-2022 class. Patricia is an active member in both the Advisor Training and Development and Canadian Advising Communities and will become chair of the Web Events Advisory Board in October. She has presented at both regional and annual conferences for NACADA. Patricia is passionate about advisor training and development and loves to use pop culture references to help advisors remember and apply advising practices. In February 2021, she presented a webinar that combined her love of Harry Potter and the different advising approaches. Patricia hopes to continue to find ways to combine her pop culture with her love of advising in the future. Patricia, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks for having me. I sound so important when you read that.
You are important, and we are delighted to be chatting to you today. Now, the way we always kind of begin is to hear about your path into advising. It gives us and the listeners an opportunity, I suppose, to get to know you a little bit better. So can you talk to us, I suppose, about how you found your way into advising, Patricia?
Sure. I'm one of those purely by accident into advising people. I've heard a few of them on the podcast before. So I, as Matt said in the introduction, out of high school, I started in psychology, a Bachelor of Science in Psychology. Then I had to take calculus, and we decided that was not a good idea. So then I switched to theater because I had always wanted to be an actress. So I took theater for a year and then began to feel like, how am I going to have a job and make money? So I switched to business. So I ended up taking marketing and really finding I loved accounting, which was shocking to me, but marketing and that kind of creativeness was where I ended up. So I worked in marketing in an insurance company for a few years, and then my husband got a job at a university in Oshawa, so a new city. So I was looking for employment and saw an administrative assistant in the Faculty of Social Science and Humanities. So I'm like, it's at the same institution he's at. That will be convenient for carpool. So let's try that. Not really knowing anything about it. As I said, I would have benefited from an advisor when I was in school. I did not have one that I'm aware of. So yeah, I applied for this job, got it. It really was an administrative position for the advisor. So she was all by herself, but I was, the one doing the paperwork, mass emails to students, that kind of thing. And then as I got more comfortable, she started giving me more advising work. So then I changed into an advisor because she's like, you're doing advising work, you should be an advisor. So I became an academic advisor, worked in a couple of different faculties, and then switched to the senior advisor once I had been there a while and knew what I was doing. So yeah, it's one of those, I didn't know it existed until I got in it and realized this is where I'm supposed to be. So it was a different path than a lot of people take, but I'm glad I ended up where I did.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of stories too, right? Where it's like, I didn't know this actually existed, and then I found out about it later, and then it's like, oh, this is how I fell into it, and loving it ever since. And it's great to hear. And yeah. So for those who may not know much about Ontario Tech University, what can you tell them about your institution as well as senior academic advisor? What does your role entail?
Okay, so Ontario Tech, officially legally, the University of Ontario Institute of Technology, but we've recently rebranded as Ontario Tech University. So contrary to the tech, I am in social science and humanities, so we do have a broad spectrum of courses, but yeah, we have a lot of the STEM courses as well. We're, I think, the newest, if not one of the newest, Ontario universities. So we've been around since 2002. So we're coming up on our 20th anniversary, which in terms of universities is very, very young. And the other ones out there are like 200 and we're 20. So it gives us that feel as well. We're a smaller institution. We have about, I want to say, between 10 to 12,000 students. My faculty in particular is around 1,600 at the moment. So yeah, it's smaller in terms of some of the big universities. All Ontario universities were publicly funded, so we're linked to the government in that way. But yeah, we're tech with a conscience is the big the big tagline that our president likes to use for our institution. So I guess us in social science, we're the conscience of the tech.
And then in terms of your own role there, I'm interested in hearing a little bit more in relation to that. And also, do you still draw on those acting skills and the marketing skills that you picked up in college?
Yes, I am the default presenter for anything at my institution. If there's a presentation that we have to give to students, let's see if Trisha can do it. Seems to be the common theme. So I do draw on the acting and presenting skills for that for sure. So my role entails meeting with students, helping them pick their classes. Right now, we are in the midst of registration, so I'm enjoying this break from the sea of emails that are currently waiting for me. It's better than the sea of students that would normally be outside of my office. So I will take the emails. It gives you time to process and answer. But yeah, the tagline we always use with students is the advising office might not be the place that they need to be, but if they come to us, we'll tell them where they should be, because we know if it's not us, who can help them for any of the issues or problems that they have. So technically, I'm supposed to help them academically, but theoretically, I think we help them with everything. So, a lot of students dealing with a lot of difficult issues, especially around COVID and trying to organize work and home and school and online and not online and everything is what's taking most of my time now.
Yeah, and I guess speaking of that, like, how is orientation going, and how do things look for your institution regarding like the upcoming term?
That's a good question, Matt. So it's one of those ever-changing situations right now. So typically our students register. We have a fall semester, which starts in September, and a winter semester, which starts in January, and then spring summer. So typically they register for both fall and winter at this time of the year. This year we're just doing fall because we didn't want to commit to the style of classes for the winter yet. So most of the fall, any of our big classes are still online. The some of the smaller classes have at least some in-person component. Not so much my faculty, but like the science, engineering, we have a nursing program. A lot of those labs are definitely on campus and hands-on where they need to be. So as the social science, we have a lot more, I think, online than some of the other faculties do. Just trying to space people out. It's if we can physically fit them in a classroom, we are doing so, but it's really, I think, 75 and under classes that we're able to accommodate. So still mostly online. We're hoping for the winter. I think we're going to register that October-ish. So they're hoping to have clearer guidelines of where we're standing with, our government and public health guidelines. So we're hoping for a lot more in person at that point.
I think there's a lot of hoping going on in everyone's institution at the moment. Nobody's exactly sure where we'll stand, but should become clearer over the next few weeks and months. Now, Patricia, one of the things Matt mentioned in your bio was that one of your areas of interest is around advisor training and development. Can you talk to us a little bit about where that interest kind of came from and how, some of the maybe initiatives and things you've been involved in?
So the interest came for me because as I said earlier, I just kind of fell into advising. So I did not know it as a profession, all the things that could happen. So it was actually when I was an advisor, before moving into the senior advisor role, my boss said, you should maybe go to a conference, like attend an NACADA conference and learn a bit more and get a little more involved that way. Little did she know. That was Salt Lake City, October 2013. Went all by myself, discovered NACADA, discovered all of the wonderful things about advising. And that's when the passion for growing the profession really came from. Because we were part of it, I think, is because we're a new institution. A lot of people were just filled these roles without, as similar to me, without previously having exposure or experience in these roles. So we're kind of building the advising from scratch. So we've had like training on campus. They're putting like all of the advisors have, we've done the NACADA e-tutorials and things like that that we've gone through. But we also, like I like to, if there's webinars or things like that, I share them, like book a room and everybody comes and we get together on those. So it's budget as always is a problem, but I like to share my knowledge. So the things that I learn and I gather from NACADA, I like to share with my fellow advisors who might not have the opportunity or the time or things like that to get ridiculously involved like I do. I wouldn't even necessarily say I have the time. I just do it anyway because I love it so much.
That Salt Lake City conference, that had a lot of energy to it. There was so many great things from the people that attended the presentations, and then you had the grades first people that were giving away the super advisor t-shirts.
This was my first free t-shirt from a conference was the supervisor. I shouldn't admit that I still wear it, as that was like 7 years ago, but I still have it and I still wear it. That one and the Advising for the Future from, is that Louisville? So that one's at least not too old.
Yeah, no.
That's good. Yeah.
No,
that venue was huge though. For
yes.
Like, that was I hadn't been to a region conference or anything. That was my first like conference, and that Salt Lake City Conference Center was the most ginormous thing. You needed the whole 10 minutes to get from room to room.
And just even getting to the convention center. So we were staying at the Marriott. So that was a few blocks away. So shout out to Harmon's grocery store that had, to me, the best coffee that we were able to go pick it up, walk our way to the convention center and get some energy. But yeah, walking around the convention center was, you got your steps in, let's just say that.
That's for sure. It was huge. So anyone in comparison after that, I'm like, it's big, but it's not as big as
right.
Salt
It's like, let me tell you about Salt Lake City. So looking back on chairing Region 5, it's a lot has happened. I mean, there's the pandemic, and, to your commitment or something a little over that. But what accomplishments do you think Region 5 has made in the last couple of years? And as the new chair starts in October, any tips for the new chair that you wish you knew when you started?
Yes, I hope there's not a pandemic that she has to deal with. So Jamie Engel's coming in October. So the region is in fantastic hands with her. It's been a very interesting region chair for me because I started October 2019. So I really didn't even get myself off the ground and running in the pandemic. The first thing I felt like I really did as a region chair was the meeting where we canceled the conference in Milwaukee. Like that was March 2020. And I remember I had been at a one-day conference at a local institution, and it was on the drive back that I got the email from the executive office saying, can we have a meeting this afternoon to talk about the conference? And I'm like, and we're going to get canceled. So that was the first big thing of my chairship. So a lot of stuff that I wish could have gotten accomplished didn't necessarily, but I'm trying to lay the groundwork moving forward, looking at like a new social justice kind of position on the committee. We don't have one of those. Some of the other regions do. So setting that up, just ensuring our conferences move forward. We have a mentoring program that we've kept going even through the pandemic, and it actually worked well because without having to meet in person, we were able to open it up a little better, our mentoring program, because they didn't have to attend the conference to join that program. So that's something we might keep going is well, we like to have it attached to the conference, and it'll be nice if you can go to keep it separate just so we can get more people in Region 5. We are, I believe, with the latest data, the largest region, but we do tend to be, the most members seem to come from where the conference is. So it's, had we been in Milwaukee this year, we would have had a lot more of our Wisconsin members join us. So I keep telling people that the annual conference this year in Cincinnati is in Region 5. So I'm hijacking it and making it my Region 5 conference, since I didn't get an in-person Region 5 while I was chair. I'm just going to, so if you see me going around with, Region 5 talking all the time, that's why. I want my conference.
I think that that will make for an even more entertaining annual conference to see that play out. Now you are, you know, as you said, you are very involved in NACADA, and one of the areas you've also been heavily involved in is the Emerging Leaders Program. Can you talk to us a little bit about that, given that you have been on kind of both sides now as mentee and mentor?
Yes, fabulous program. It's another one of those. A lot of my NACADA involvement has been let's give this a try and see what happens. So that was the emerging leader. I had not been with NACADA long enough to make the minimum when I applied, and I got in the first time, which is obviously is not the norm, is what I've been told. And I had a fabulous mentor, Sally Garner, in Oregon. So she was instrumental in helping me figure out a path and what I wanted to do, because it was like deer in headlights of, oh my God, there's so much. What do I do? So I was just not, I needed direction, and Sally provided that for me. She had been a region chair. She had, presented at conferences and all that. So she was able to give me some perspective, and yeah, you can do this. When I said, is region chair something I could actually do? She gave me that confidence of, yes, you can. So she helped me build that groundwork for that. And then now seeing the flip side, as mentor to the lovely Maria Domingo, who is very, very easy to mentor because she's fantastic and just does everything anyway. I feel like I am there for moral support more than to help her out with things. It's I said this to her, actually, it's a lot less work on the mentor side, because you're just like, that sounds good. Have you thought of this? So it's much easier to be the mentor than the mentee, for sure. But it's fun, again, to explore those ideas, like what's out there, what can Maria do, what can I suggest for her, to just see the amazing possibilities. NACADA has endless leadership possibilities that you can get involved in, and it's nice to see the different areas that I might not have been comfortable with myself, to see Maria go into those. Like, she was doing like book review and things like that. So living vicariously through someone else is a nice benefit of the ELP program as well.
Yeah, and Sally's awesome, especially on Facebook, seeing all the pictures of her pets, like her dogs.
Yeah. No, they're adorable. I love it.
And then Maria, I've known, gosh, for quite a few years now, and just to see the amount of things that opportunities that she's getting involved in, I'm like, keep doing it, keep going.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
She's already doing other stuff. I'm like, save that, make that a year two goal.
Don't need to do everything in year one.
No, that's right.
But with the Emerging Leaders Program, sometimes people are on the fence of like, should I apply? Should I not? Do I even qualify? What even is a leader or a mentor? Like, for you, what got you to kind of the nudge to apply as, originally as an emerging leader, and then to apply as a mentor?
I think originally it was probably encouragement. So Nancy Roadruck was the chair of Region 5 at the time that I was applying. I was the conference co-chair for the 2016 conference in Toronto, which is still one of my career highlights. And I think I had mentioned it or said something about it to Nancy, who said, that's a fantastic idea. I think you should apply. And at that time, the requirements were you needed a NACADA member to nominate you. So Nancy stepped up and said she would be willing to do that for me. So that was the nudge I needed, to go, okay, because I had just heard of it and I was like, well, what's this? I think I might have gone to a presentation about it. So that was kind of how I went into it. And then I became a member of the advisory board, the Emerging Leaders Advisory Board. So being on that, knowing that there's always a need for mentors, because one thing, and get this out there so it's on a recording, you do not have to have been an emerging leader to be a mentor. You just have to have been a leader in NACADA. And I think a lot of people don't realize that. So we're often needing more mentors to apply. So knowing that, I was like, oh, maybe I should apply. So I was a little on the fence of should I do it. And I chatted with Lee Cunningham, who's the executive office rep for the ELP program, and just said, is it a good idea? I'm on the board, but I'm also a region chair. Like, is this a good time? And I talked to Sally, because I asked Sally if she thought being a mentor while being the region chair made sense. And she said, I think it makes perfect sense for you. So, and this was after our time had been up. So she's still helping me. So yeah, they suggested it, and I went for it and got it. The best part, when you are on the advisory board, you have to review all of the applications for the mentor and for the emerging leaders. But when you apply to be a mentor, you don't have to do the mentor. So I got out of some work by applying as well. So that's good. But I enjoy so much reading those applications. It's a lot of work because there's a lot of reading involved, and making sure you're getting a sense of the person, but it's so fun just to see the different people out there in the organization.
Absolutely. I haven't read those, but having read conference proposals, which are also always fascinating, and you kind of glean so many ideas even from just reading the proposals. And I suppose one of the things that would be really interesting, and for listeners who might not know anything about it, but you talked about the presentations you've done previously. Can you talk to us about the magical world of academic advising styles and personalities unite?
Yes. So that was the webinar. I assume in this podcast, I'm free to say copyrighted things. We can say Harry Potter. Yes.
Yeah.
Because that was in my presentation, I did it first at the region conference in Columbus. I was going to say Columbus, Ohio. And then at the annual conference in Phoenix, where it was called Academic Advising at Hogwarts. Because I could say that. You can kind of get away with it in a live presentation, but once you're recording it and putting it online, it's a no-go. So we had to get very creative with how to talk about Harry Potter without talking about Harry Potter. So we kind of took 2 Harry Potter presentations. I was matched with some lovely people from Hawaii who had done a previous presentation on personality styles in the Harry Potter houses. So that's where the "and personalities unite" part comes from. But yeah, it started, I think it was a Facebook post. Heather Doyle from Dalhousie University said, can you imagine being an advisor at Hogwarts or something like that? And I went, yes, I can. Let's think about that more. And I just started to think about, what would it be like? How would Harry's life have been different if he had an advisor? And then I started rereading the books and like digging into them. And I was originally thinking of something with the theory, because I had seen Ryan Sheckle's Star Wars presentation, if either of you have seen that, where he talked about Star Wars and advising theories. But I found the approaches work much better than finding the different, what could be considered advising interactions in the Harry Potter stories and relating those to the different approaches. My favorite being, I called Dumbledore appreciative advising, with his different ways of dealing with things. So yeah, it was the most fun presentation I have ever prepared for in my life. I had a fabulous time. Full rooms both times. Phoenix, I was floored with the number of people and the response I got. Like, it was one of the greatest presentation feelings I have ever had. The webinar was also fabulous, but you're not getting that the feedback that you get from a live audience. But it was still, it was very interesting when we started talking about the webinar, and essentially all of my PowerPoint was pictures from the Harry Potter movies. So when talking with Lee about how is this going to work, she's like, we're going to have to get creative. And I own Harry Potter Lego, which, since that is my Lego that I own and I can take pictures of it, those become my copyrighted material. So I basically got to play with Lego to take pictures to put in my presentation. And it was so much fun. I have probably too much Harry Potter Lego, but now I can say I needed it. It was for work. I don't know how I'm going to continue that. I'll have to come up with another presentation, I guess, to get away with it. But I even, like, at one point I was cutting out little tiny educational decrees to tape on the wall of my Lego for one of my slides. So it was great fun. But the reason I wanted to do it as well was just I think it comes from the student in me, where I always like to relate things to something to help me remember. So this was how do I remember what appreciative advising is? Oh, well, I'll think of Dumbledore and the ways he does things and the different steps, it just leads me that way. Or developmental advising. I had McGonagall and her interactions with Harry for that one. So I like to give people ways to remember things and a different way to think about them so that you go, oh, okay, I understand what that is now. So I'm still trying to figure out a way to work Buffy, the Vampire Slayer, into something. I'm leaning towards the core competencies, but I don't know. We'll see. If Slayer competencies, advising competencies, they're the same.
Now, are we talking about the movie or the series?
The series.
Just to clarify, in case anyone's like, hey. But yeah, the webinar, I thought it was a fantastic job to be able to still say Harry Potter without saying Harry Potter.
Right? The boy wizard.
Yeah, and the use of the Lego with the pictures, I think that worked tremendously well. So a great way to kind of go around it. And it kind of reminds me of a presentation that Ryan Shuckle was on for one of the webinars where he couldn't say Star Wars, so I had to think of creative ways to say Star Wars. But yeah, very, very well done. And I like seeing a lot of the pop culture ones and how you can incorporate those. And I guess the question would be, where does this love for pop culture come from? And is there any advice that you have for those who want to incorporate pop culture into, let's say, their advisor training, maybe at their institution, especially if it's trying to convince their supervisor?
Okay, I'll start with the first half though. Where did the love of pop culture come from? I think it's always been there, always. I got to the point where my family wouldn't play. I had a Trivial Pursuit pop culture edition and they would not play it with me. When we do play the regular edition, the entertainment category is always the first one I go to. But I will say my pop culture knowledge is somewhat limited to, I'd say, before 2005. When their show, you see on, Entertainment Tonight, it's like this person and this person were out, and I'm like, I don't know who those people are. So I do have a love of pop culture, just maybe not current pop culture. And I think, part of that, I started in theater. Like, it's always been like entertainment has always been a thing that I have enjoyed and I have liked. I may or may not have also been in a band in high school, but we don't have to resurface that tape anytime soon. So yeah, just entertainment and music and movies and TV is always been my thing. That's my relaxing. When I get time to myself, it's TV or a movie that is what I turn to. So then my advice for integrating pop culture into advising stuff is just go for it. Like it maybe not something that's really, really niche and not a lot of people would know. I was pretty safe, I think, with Harry Potter, knowing that there would be a large audience of people who were familiar with it. But I did have people in my presentation, because I asked, like, has anybody not read the books? Has anybody not even seen the movies? And there was a couple who hadn't, and they sat through it and they seemed to have a good time. So making sure that what you're saying also still makes sense outside of the realm of that particular pop culture. But I don't know how to convince the moneymakers to maybe. I don't have that. I have a very supportive boss who was behind me and for it. So, but starting a presentation at your own institution is a great way to like test run things and see how it's going and does it make sense? Are your references too obscure? But just know, if you ever get to the point of doing a webinar, think in the back of your head how you're going to make this work without saying anything copyrighted.
And maybe then actually kind of building on that, Patricia, because as you said, you are kind of the go-to person in your institution in terms of presentations. For listeners, who maybe are new to public speaking or are not particularly comfortable, do you have any advice to the listeners in terms of public speaking or presenting in general?
I think just have fun with it and not be as rigid. I think I was thinking the other day about when somebody asked, why do you like presenting? And I'm like, because I know what I'm talking about. Like I was thinking about like in school, like when you had to do a presentation for a class in school and you're like, like the bare minimum that you had to do to put this presentation. So the questions was the scariest part because you're like, they're going to ask me something and I'm not going to know the answer. But when it comes to like advising or these presentations that I put together, I feel confident, especially in my institution. Like there's no question a student can ask me that I'm not going to know the answer to be able to tell them. So I think just being comfortable with your subject matter is the most important thing, because then you're just automatically going to feel more comfortable, more at ease when you're talking. And I find for me, and other people might be opposite, I find for me, having an outline of here's what I'm going to say and just practicing it. I then am notorious for not referring to those notes when I do present because I have practiced it so many times that I don't need it anymore because I've gotten used to it. But literally writing out, here's what I'm going to say for this slide. Here's what I'm going to say for this one. And then just practice it a bunch. I remember before Phoenix in my hotel room practicing my presentation because there was a Harry Potter marathon on TV. So I had that on in the background as I was practicing my presentation again before doing it. So practice, write it out, use other people if you can as well to practice in front of and get some pointers. But I think it is one of those things that you just have to do more and more to get more comfortable with.
Yeah, no, definitely great advice. And, a great book too that kind of encompasses a lot of that too is called Speaker's Edge, Secrets and Strategies for Connecting with Any Audience. And it's a book that has a lot of the different, if anyone's heard of Toastmasters and the World Championship of Public Speaking, they do have like 5 different authors of this book that were like world champions. So they go over a lot of stuff from like platform performance, content excellence, and various techniques, including a lot of the ones that you've mentioned. And, something also that was mentioned was, the webinar. So like the Harry Potter, not Harry Potter webinar, but you're going to be the incoming chair for the Web Events Advisory Board. And for those who don't know, what can you say about what the Web Events Advisory Board is? And is there anything you're looking forward to as incoming chair?
Yes. So I am new to the advisory board. They were in need of a chair when the one they were hoping for went and got himself another position at the institution. Cough, cough, Matt. So I was asked if I could step in and take this chair position. So when meeting with the current chair and again, Lee in the executive office, they told me about it and what's involved. And they had me at, you get to watch all of the webinars. Because that to me was like, okay, awesome, gaining all of this knowledge. So the Web Events Advisory Board is essentially, as it says, it's an advisory board to the executive office in regards to their web events, which at the moment is webinars, but who knows what the future holds for the web events in my 2-year term. So they, help recruit people for proposals to submit for webinars. They review the webinars themselves to give feedback to both the presenters and the executive office on how things went, review old webinars to make sure they're still relevant. One of the things that was mentioned was making sure that they don't have any content that is at the time was probably okay, but maybe now is not considered correct. So removing any of that content that exists, and probably more that I don't know of yet because I don't have the chair position. But I'm looking forward to it. I'm very excited, especially now in the time that we're in. I think web events are not going anywhere, and they've just gained in popularity. So with people's budgets slashed for traveling, I think we might see an increase in web event registration.
And Patricia, one of the things that would probably be interesting for listeners to hear in terms of how do you approach like time management and juggling all of these things between your own role at your institution, the ELP, the Region 5 chair, and still taking on and presenting, and your life outside of advising. Any tips you can offer on that?
Probably not. That's a good question, Colin. I thankfully have a very understanding and accommodating boss who is fine with, like, technically I should be working right now, but I am chatting with you two. And she is okay with me using my work time for Nakata purposes as long as it does not get crazy. So other than that, it's lists. I currently have one that on the bottom of it has poster. Like there's a bunch of stuff above it that needs to be done first, but then poster's already on there. I don't need that poster till October, but I know if I don't start working on that poster now, it will not be ready by October. I will be scrambling come Cincinnati. So yeah, just keeping an eye on what I have to do and just taking that time. Often I use like my lunch hour is when I'll get some, shoot at the Nakata emails or answer the stuff I have to do. But everything is volunteer, which is what they keep telling everybody. It's volunteer. So you do it if you can and when you can. So there are obviously crunch times where things have to get done and things need to happen, like the reading the proposals for the conference or reading applications for the ELP program. You just have to make the time. It's, a couple hours here, a couple hours there is what I do. I also have 2 children, so working around their lives, evenings get a little full. That's why when I do finally get my TV time and I get to crash on the couch at 8 o'clock at night, I fully enjoy it. But yeah, it's a lot of lists to remember to get things done, and little bits at a time is what I do. Instead of, 2 hours and get everything done, which might be better if I had that, it's, a little bit each day.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic advice. And, utilizing that time. So maybe you're on a road trip and maybe you're still working. I don't know. But
maybe you answer emails from your car. Yes,
But
exactly.
you have an exciting thing coming up. Maybe it starts tomorrow. I don't know. Can you tell us about that?
Are we referring to my vacation, Matt?
We are.
Yes. I finally get to, I'm in Ontario, and all of my family is in Nova Scotia. For non-Canadians, that's 2 provinces away. So it's a bit of a drive, but we finally got the all clear. We're vaccinated. The province will let us in. We're allowed to come back when we're done. So after 2 years of not being home and seeing everybody, I leave tomorrow. But I technically have not taken tomorrow off of work. I am working from the car. So students might get some interesting emails if we hit a dead zone with the data. Who knows what'll happen, but it could be interesting, and I am so excited. But I have a billion things I still have to do by the end of the day. But it's all good. It's a good feeling when you're anticipating something.
Well, somehow, given your ability to juggle so many things, I am confident in your ability to get things finished before you need to at the end of the day.
Because I have the lists, Colum. I have the
See,
lists.
but you know enough to have those lists, and I suppose with that in mind, in terms of you, because you do have expertise in like public speaking, in time management, in event planning, in presenting, in all of those things, and just interesting in general. For listeners who want to get in touch with you to hear more and maybe bounce ideas, is there a way that they can do that?
Absolutely. They can email me. You want me to just rattle off my email?
Sure, yeah.
It's very simple. It's my first name, so Patricia.MacMillan at, here's the fun part, OntarioTechU.ca. So OntarioTechu.ca. If you Google me, Google Patricia MacMillan Ontario Tech, it'll come up. Or I'm on the Nakata website under Region 5. You can find me. I'm friends with a lot of people on Facebook as well. You can find me there. So I'm always happy to help people. Again, it might take a few days for the response to come, but I will get back to you.
We can probably, people will get the spelling of your name and the institution in the show notes as well. So I'm confident
right,
they will be able to get in touch with you, and I've no doubt that many people will, because this has been really interesting and insightful. And just want to thank you for taking the time to chat to myself and Matt today.
I appreciate it. Thank you. It was an honor.